Welcome to my little corner of the internet, where we celebrate creativity and growth. Welcome, curious minds, to our video that explores the ins and outs of Chronicle of Muntaner. The Chronicle of Ramon Muntaner, written by the Catalan burgher and administrator Ramon Muntaner in Xirivella, Kingdom of Valencia, is the longest of what are known as the Four Great Catalan Chronicles of the 13th and 14th centuries. It narrates events relating to the history of the Crown of Aragon and to Muntaner's personal career in Iberia, Sicily, the Aegean and North Africa, and spans the period from the conception of James I of Aragon in May 1207 to the coronation of Alfonso IV of Aragon in April 1328. Its character of mirror of princes and mirror of citizens has been pointed out by scholars. The expedition of the Catalan Company to Byzantium in 1303, in which Muntaner took part as the treasurer of the company, forms the central episode of the chronicle, and likely provided the impulse for its composition. It enabled the author to frame his own experiences within the larger context of Catalan-Aragonese affairs in the Mediterranean. In presenting his account, Muntaner relies on his authority of an eyewitness, as evidenced by his frequent use of "I was there." The chronicle survives in 8 medieval copies, of which the oldest dated one is from 1342. The first edition, which appeared in 1558, established the current subdivision of the work into 298 chapters and influenced the transmission of the text. Since the turn of the 19th century, the chronicle has been the subject of studies by leading Catalan historians and philologists, among them Lluís Nicolau d'Olwer, Ferran Soldevila, and more recently Maria Teresa Ferrer I Malol and Josep Antoni Aguilar, as well as by the Italian scholars and Veronica Rossi. Let's zoom in on author and understand its implications. Ramon Muntaner was born in Paralida in 1265. He was the son of a remarkable family that hosted James I the Conqueror in 1274. James I went to the Second Council of Lyon and sojourned in the castle of Paralida with Alfonso X the Wise of Castile. This fact, which occurred when he was 9 years old, was one of his most precious memories, and he mentions this event with emotion in the chronicle. In the same way that in the European novelist tradition, for example, Curtin de Troyes, it is exposed to us how the vision of a great hero in the eyes of a child is capable of changing the course of his life. Muntaner says that the vision of James I when he was a child led him to devote himself as a writer, explaining everything he had seen. In 1285, Paralida was destroyed by the Almogovers during the crusade against the Crown of Aragon, and he had to emigrate. When he was 20, Ramon Muntaner took part in the conquest of Menorca. Later, he participated in the fight against the French during the War of Sicily, in 1300 at the Siege of Messina, next to Roger de Flor and as the administrator of his company. In the summer of 1302, he began under the orders of this leader the expedition to the east. In 1307, he left the company, and in 1311 he married. In 1315, he had to travel between Sicily and Roussillon, as he was in charge of a delicate mission to transport from Catania to Perpignan an orphan baby, the future James I of Malacca, in order to deliver him to his grandparents. From that moment on, his memoirs were removed and matured for 10 years, until he had a revealing dream that prompted him, in 1325, at the age of 60, in Valencia, to start writing the chronicle, which he finished 3 years later. Muntaner died on Ibiza in 1336. Now, let's shift our perspective and explore work from a different angle. Muntaner had a personal relationship with all the kings of the House of Aragon, the House of Malacca and the House of Sicily, belonging to the lineage of the Casal de Barcelona that were contemporary to him. In doing his work, he mainly resorted to historiographic texts for the reigns of James I and Peter the Great, and, from Alphonse L. Frank, his almost exclusive source is his own experience. The work was written to be read aloud. Whenever he addresses his listeners, he usually calls them lords. Muntaner managed to establish a rapport with his listeners. To do this, he uses journalistic procedures such as the question "What should I say?" as well as using lively and colloquial language. The fundamental purpose of the work is to glorify the kings of the House of Aragon. The chronicler loyalty to the crown is closely related to provincialism and nationalism. The blood, a common fate, and the language, the most beautiful Catalans in the world, are the elements that make up the base of the Catalan and Aragonese community. It is impossible to find in the whole of medieval Europe anything that resembles the national maturity of the chronicle. His life and adherence to the dynasty and the Catalan language, to which he expressed an extraordinary devotion, represent the counterweight to the centripetal forces within the Catalan national community resulting from the organization of conquered lands in new kingdoms Malacca, Valencia, Sicily, and, sometimes, the implantation of a new dynastic branch Malacca, Sicily. The awareness of the danger of division and the value of the union also explained it in his chronicle, especially in the example of the rush plant, motto de jonc in Catalan, similar to the Certorius horse-tail example. By virtue of this work, Ramon Muntaner also became the first author in the Catalan language to capture the aspirations of a large part of the Catalan elite for an Iberian political reunification, as he commented on Ariza's interview between the monarchs of the Crown of Aragon and the Crown of Castile, in which the latter proposed to Peter the Great an alliance between them, the King of Portugal and the King of Malacca. Muntaner added, and, assuredly, he spoke the truth, if these 4 kings of Spain whom he named, who are of one flesh and blood, held together, little need they fear all the other powers of the world. Si aquests quatre rise que el nomen of Espanya, he sen una carn y una sang, se tegessen ensemble, hoc dupta tot l'altre poder delmen. Prepare yourself for an eye-opening discussion on discrepancies between the Chronicle of Muntaner and that of Pacimas in the upcoming portion of this video. Regarding the Catalan Company of the East, Ramon Muntaner began to write his chronicle in 1325, that is, 17 years after the Byzantine Greek George Pacimas wrote his work De Michael et Andronico Palaiologis. While the work of Pacimas offers the Greek vision of the facts, emphasizing the atrocities committed by the company and Roger de Flor until 1308, the Chronicle of Ramon Muntaner is the only Western source that relates the events in which the Catalan Company of the East took part. In some aspects, the work of Ramon Muntaner becomes not only a glorification of Roger de Flor and the company, but also a counter-narrative to the work of Pacimas, narrating some facts that the Greek omits, and explaining events that the Greek author does report in detail. Some of these events are a massacre of the genus. Pacimas claims that the massacre began as a result of a debt that Roger de Flor had not paid to the genus, while Muntaner fails to explain why the confrontations began. Battle of Germ, although it was a minor battle, Muntaner says nothing about it. Summary executions at Germ. Pacimas calls Roger de Flor bloodthirsty because he wanted to execute the Greek soldiers who had surrendered the fortress to the Turks, accusing them of cowardice. Muntaner says nothing about it. Summary executions at Cola. Again, Pacimas calls Roger de Flor bloodthirsty because he wanted to execute the Greek soldiers who had surrendered the fortress to the Turks, accusing them of cowardice. Muntaner says nothing about it. War contributions to Philadelphia. Pacimas explains that, after releasing the city of Philadelphia, Roger de Flor levied illegal and unwarranted war tributes on the city. Muntaner says nothing about it. War tribute levied on Ephesus. Pacimas narrates that after Bernard de Roquefort met with Roger de Flor in Ephesus, he committed all kinds of atrocities to exact payment of additional tribute. Muntaner says nothing about it. The Siege of Magnesia. Pacimas narrates that the governor of Magnesia executed the Almaguer garrison that protected the company's treasure, seized it, and then withstood the siege that the company laid on the city. Muntaner says nothing about it. Numbers. Pacimas' source for citing the number of armies, and of people killed, wounded and captured is unknown. Muntaner's numbers invariably favor Roger de Flor and the Catalan Company of the East. Brace yourself for a captivating discussion on manuscripts and editions as we explore its nuances and implications. Muntaner's work had great repercussions and diffusion during the 14th and 15th centuries, and was used, for example, in various passages of Tirant Lo Blanc by Jonet Martel. It was published for the first time in the 16th century, coinciding with a time of great revision of historiography. This first edition was commissioned and paid by the jurors of the city of Valencia. New printed editions took place during the 19th century, during the period of romantic exaltation of the European medieval past. Even a translation into English made by the Hakluyt Society in 1920-21. With the groundwork laid, let's now examine manuscripts and its connections to our previous discussions. The Sigil were proposed by Mas I Torrents and followed by Nicolau d'Orwa, Soldevilla and Xirivella. Neither of the oldest manuscripts seems to have come from the hand of Muntaner himself, as they contain corruptions and omissions detectable by comparing them against one other manuscript dated by paleography to Madrid, number KI6. Paper suggested origin from Xirivella. Incomplete, only chapters of 298, internal lacuna e.g. chapter 20, 36 whole, 51. Chapters added in the 17th century. Medieval part copied in 3 different hands. Related most closely to East according to Nicolau d'Orwa. Contains the miniature depicting Muntaner in the act of writing. Used in the partial critical editions of Nicolau d'Orwa and Xirivella, offers additions and corrections to the version in manuscript Celsius. Manuscript be undated, Biblioteca Regional Universitaria di Catania, number. Parchment, suggested origin from Valencia. Incomplete, only chapters of 298. Related most closely to D and to the 1558 Editio Princeps according to Nicolau d'Orwa. Copied in at least 2 different hands. Used in the partial critical editions of Nicolau d'Orwa and Xirivella, offers additions and corrections to the version in manuscript Celsius. Manuscript Celsius dated 1342 Biblioteca Nacional de España Madrid, number 1803. Paper. The only complete medieval copy, produced by a single hand. Characterized by the highest number of unique variants. Chapter divisions added after completion. Used in all 20th century critical Nicolau d'Orwa, fragmentary or semi-critical Casa Cubita editions and editions dependent on them Soldevilla, Gust, Iscot, all of which modernist the spelling, and in the recent fragmentary critical edition of Xirivella. Manuscript dated 1353 Biblioteca de Catalunya Barcelona, number 4. Paper. Incomplete, only chapters. Appears to be copied by a single hand. Taken into account as a source of emendations in the edition by Casa Cubita and again with minor divergences by Soldevilla. Manuscript East undated, between 1393 and 1420 Biblioteca Universitaria de Barcelona, number 759. Paper. Incomplete, only chapters. Contains interpolations e.g. between chapters and a brief note of continuation on the royal marriage of 1328. Appears to be copied by a single hand. Taken into account as a source of emendations in the edition by Casa Cubita and again with minor divergences by Soldevilla. In this part of the video, we'll be diving deep into complete and unraveling its profound impact. 1558 Valencia Editio Princeps by the widow of Joan May Flandreau, chronicle or description of the acts and feats of the illustrious James I, King of Aragon, Malacca and Valencia, Count of Barcelona and Montpellier, and many of his descendants. Done by the magnificent in Ramon Muntaner, who served said illustrious kingdom and his children and descendants and was present at the events contained in the present history. 1562 Barcelona's second printed edition by Corti, chronicle or description of the acts and feats of the illustrious James I, King of Aragon, Malacca and Valencia, Count of Barcelona and Montpellier, and many of his descendants. Done by the magnificent in Ramon Muntaner, who served said illustrious kingdom and his children and descendants and was present at the events contained in the present history. 1844 Stuttgart edition by Karl Lanz, Chronique de Edlin en Ramon Muntaner. Based on the 1558 Editio Princeps and the 1562 edition 1860 Barcelona edition by Chronicle Catalana de Ramon Muntaner based on the 1558 Edition Princeps. 1886 Barcelona edition by Josep Carolou. Chronicle Barcelona Barquino edition by Josep Maria Casacubata with the collaboration of Chronicle. Based on manuscripts C, D and East 1971 Barcelona Select edition by Ferran Soldevila, Les Quatre Grands Chronicles 3. Chronicle de Ramon Muntaner revised by Jordi Bruguera and Maria Teresa Ferrer i Malol, Barcelona, Institut Studis Catalans, 2011. Based on manuscripts C, D and East 1973 Barcelona Select edition by J.F. Fidel and Bartomeu Bodig, Chronicle 1979 Barcelona editions 62 edition by Marina Gust, Chronicle reprinted 1984, 1985, 1989, 1990, 1991, 1994, 1998. Based on manuscripts C, D and East 1999 Valencia Institut Orphans El Madnim edition by Vicente Josep Iscart, Chronicle. Based on manuscripts C, D and East 2006 Barcelona facsimile edition by Stefano Maria Singolani in his La Memoria dels Reis. Les Quatre Grands Chronicles I la Historiografia Catalana, de del Segle X fins al XIV. Contains facsimiles of 3 of the 4 Great Chronicles from their first printed editions, 1557 by Joan May for the James I's Book of Deeds, 1616 by Sebasti Cormelas for the Chronicle of Discat, and 1558 by Joan May for the Chronicle of Muntaner, plus the 1547 edition by Carles Amors of the Chronicles of Spain by Per Marceli. As we transition to the next segment, let's unravel the mysteries surrounding fragmentary and gain a fresh perspective. 1850 Palma de Mallorca edition by Josep Maria Cuadrado, Conquesta de Mallorca 1878 Naples edition by Enric Cardona, Chronicle 1879 Montpellier edition by Manuel Milay Fontanals, Serma Redici 1881. Chapter 272. Based on manuscripts Celsius and D, and the 1558 Edition Princeps 1926 Barcelona edition by Luis Nicolau d'Or, Les Expedici dels Catalans a Orient, the expedition of the Catalans to the East. Critical edition of chapters. Based on manuscripts A, B, C, D 1932 Barcelona Barquino edition by Ramon Alsmona, Pigeons Escudis de Ramon Muntaner 1966 Barcelona edition by Ramon Sumoy, La Croda de Frana contra els Catalans The Crusade of France against the Catalans 2015 Barcelona Institut Studis Catalans edition by Josep Maria Xirivella, La Chrònica de Ramon Muntaner, Edici I Estudi Plague Catal 146, Volume 2. Critical edition of chapters. Based on manuscripts A, B, C, D and East. Let's now shift gears and explore complete through a critical lens, uncovering its strengths and weaknesses. 16th century. Castilian, Miguel Montard, Crónica o Descripción de los Fechos y Hosas del Inclido Rey de Jaime I, Rey de Aragon, de Mallorca y de Valencia, Conde de Barcelona y de Montpellier y de muchos de sus descendientes, Real Biblioteca del Monasterio de San Lorenzo de El Escorial, MS number JIII 25. 1827. French, Jean-Issy Buchan, Chronique de Ramon Muntaner, Paris, Verdery. 2 vols. Re-edited 1840 in Chroniques étranges relatives aux expeditions Franes pendant Louis E. Sickle, Paris, August Desres 1842. German, Karl Fahrenheit. W. Lanz, Chronique de Edlin en Ramon Muntaner. Crónica o Descripción dels Fets y Hazanes del Inclit Rey Don Leon Prima y de Molts de sus Descendants, Leipzig. Based on the 1558 Edition Princeps and the 1562 edition. 1844. Italian, Filippo Mois, Chronique Catalan del Secolo XIIIEXIV. Una di Raimondo Muntaner, Les Ultra di Bernardo Disclet, Florence, Galileana. 2 vols. 1921. English, Anna Kinsky Goodenow, The Chronicle of Muntaner, London, Hakluyt Society, Volume 1, Volume 2. Based on the edition of Beaufort, that is on the 1558 Editio Princeps. 1970. Spanish, Joan Fuster, Chronicle, Madrid, Alianza. Let's now enter the realm of fragmentary and discover the fascinating stories it has to tell. 14th century. Sicilian, Anonymous. Edited by Vincenzo di Giovanni, Chronicle Sicilian di Secoli XIII, XIVEXV, Bologna 1865. A selection of 86 chapters relating to Sicilian affairs 1994. Bulgarian, Rosica Panova, Sofia, Noka Ietskistvo. Chapters. Based on the editions of Nicolae Dolwa, Casacubitad, Soldevilla, and Gust IE on manuscripts C, D and E. 1999. Italian, Maddalena Corria's translator, Giuseppe Meloni editor, Ramon Muntaner Pietro IV of Argona, La Conquista della Sardegna nel Chronicle Catalan, Neuro, Eliso. Chapters, and several other fragments relevant to Sardinia. Based on the editions of Casacubita and Soldevilla IE on manuscripts C, D and E. 2002. French, Jean-Marie Barber, Les Almogavres, Les Expeditions de Catalans en Orient, Toulouse, Anocharses. Chapters. Does not state the edition used. 2006. English, The Catalan Expedition to the East from the Chronicle of Ramon Muntaner, Woodbridge, Thameses. Chapters. Based on the editions of Nicolae Dolwa, Soldevilla and Escart IE on manuscripts C, D and E. Now, let's shift our perspective and explore Parphras from a different angle. 1623. Spanish, Francisco of Moncada, Expedition de Catalans y Aragonese al Orient, contra Turcos y Griegos, Barcelona, reprinted Madrid 1777. 1902. French, Gustave Schlumberger, Expedition de Almogavares Uratias Catalans en Orient de l'an 1302 l'an 1311, Paris, reprinted 1925. 1968. Spanish, Ramon Sender, Byzantium, Barcelona, Andorra. As we enter this new phase, let's analyze exonymes in the Chronicle from different angles and evaluate its significance. The links between the Crown of Aragon and other kingdoms and territories generated since the Middle Ages. Numerous exonymes that are nowadays almost forgotten, with the exception of Candia, now called Iroquoian, on Crete. There follow some of the exonymes that appear in the Chronicle of Muntaner. For Athens, capital of Greece. For Thebes, city of Greece. For Pylos, also known as Novarino, city of Greece. For Thessos, a Greek island. For Santiago de Compostela, capital of Galicia, Spain. For Seville, capital of Andalusia, Spain. For Siracusa, city of Sicily, Italy. For Skorka, city of Sicily, Italy. For Siena, city of Italy. For Florence, city of Italy. For Gozo, an island of Malta. For Patras, city of Greece. For Cephalonia, island of Greece. For Corfu, island of Greece. For Brindisi, city of Italy. For Otranto, city of Italy. Current Heraclean, city of Crete. Have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future videos? Let me know in the comments.